Hi, I'm Ryan Nickel, CTO at DSA Ocean, and today I want to talk about how you can set up a drifter buoy and mooring system in ProteusDS. So most of the time when we talk about the ProteusDS Oceanographic toolset, we're talking about setting up a mooring, and of course that implies you have an anchor and the system is staying put, and you want to know what's happening to the motions and loads in the mooring line and the buoy and that kind of configuration. But sometimes it's useful to look at a drifting mooring system, and you can get some insight from ProteusDS by seeing, drift rates and also motions. If you have stuff hanging off the buoy, you might want to know how that affects the motion of the system as well. So let's take a look at that. You can do it really quickly and easily, but there's a couple things you have to know about. So we'll start with a new project, and now I'm looking at Oceanographic Designer here. It doesn't really matter what water depth you're going to use. What I'm going to do is keep it on surface, but I'm going to use the Sofar Spotter buoy. There we go. So we'll select that, and we'll create the project here. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a small amount of wire hanging off of it. Let's get rid of this 1/4 inch wire. That's pretty heavy. And we'll add something really small. So some 3/16 wire. Let's just say 20 meters, say. So, that's about a kilogram of wet weight hanging off the buoy. Maybe you might have a CTD or something on there. And maybe you might want to have, we've got an anchor here, but maybe rather you might want to have a ballast assembly. Maybe with a small connector or something to just create a little bit of weight. Put a little shackle on the bottom there. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Drifter buoy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a dynamic export, not a static, because we're going to go straight to looking at what this thing will be doing in waves. So now it's made the project folder for us that we can look at in ProteusDS Simulation Toolbox. So now you can see here we have our Sofar Spotter buoy there and the little connector, and it's got a little, if you look at the state and get into the details, you'll see the bit of wire rope as well. Now there's a couple of gotchas here. Normally what Oceanographic Designer is trying to do is say, oh, well, the bottom is obviously going to be where the anchor is. And if you look at this, you'll see, oops, well, then that short 20 meters length of wire is way down at the bottom of the sea. So rather than running a simulation and letting this slowly float to the surface, what we'll do is we'll just quickly change the state. So click on State, and we'll go Edit. It'll just say, hey, I got to fill out some information, but don't worry about that. And what we want to do is node 0 is where the buoy is. We'll just set the Z position to 0. That's where the mean water surface is. And then node N position is the other end where normally the bottom part of the anchor is. There's a couple of things you can do here. What's really quick and easy to use is use the deltas on the side here relative to node N. Got the length here of 20 and a tiny bit, so I should put in 20.186. I'm just copying the number of the length that's configured there. And we'll go to Proceed and Apply, and then you'll see over here, boom, there's our drifter buoy starting off at the water surface. There's our little Sofar buoy. So that's great, starting there. Now there's one more thing you got to do is there's this node N static flag here. What that's doing is saying, oh, that's acting like an anchor. So it's gonna if we leave it at 1, then the bottom is going to be fixed no matter what's happening. So we'll set this to 0. Now we have a buoy at the surface and a totally free floating system. So what I'll do is we'll just run a really quick simple simulation here. We'll turn on John swap. If you right click on this, resolve follower properties, you can see, I don't know, we'll put in 5 meter significant wave height. It's already got 9 seconds peak period here. And we'll just run the simulation. And you can see it's churning away here. So if I take a quick peek at what's happening as it's simulating, I'm just loading up post PDS here. And we only have a couple of seconds of simulation here, but I'll go to engineering view here and zoom in on the buoy. The waves ramp up over time, so you'll see the buoy start moving. I believe there's a default current profile on as well. Is there a current profile? Oh yeah, there's like a 1 meter per second current profile as well on top of that. So obviously you can change the current profile and get an idea of what's happening as this thing is drifting and what's the drift velocity like in different sea states. You know, you could set up a batch of simulations in different sea states to explore what that looks like, and just get an idea of the motions and things like that. So yeah, just wanted to give some insight into what's involved and some slight tweaks that you need to deal with in looking at a drifting mooring. Hope you found that useful. Thanks for watching.